Mark. Bum. You know what that is?
It sounds very familiar. I've heard it on a podcast, right? Have I?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. Was it yours?
That's funny.
I think somebody
That's
was singing. She has a very, very good voice.
you wrote that for me.
Yeah. Oh, well, you told me what to write, so it was easy. You're the best client I've had.
And the lowest paying client ever.
Well worth it, though.
That's because you're one of my friends in high places, but you're also my brother in a high place.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Marc Blatte is composer, author. We've heard of Tiger King. Maybe he'd be Jingle King, Jungle King. You were in Nicaragua. There's a lot to you.
Well, I've had a lot of time to do all those things, believe me.
He's my older brother. We're not by blood, though, but your mom married my dad.
And I love you and your brother and sister. Great.
Thank you, Mark, and back at you
Thank
all.
you.
And so I have a sister named Lisa and a stepsister named Lisa, and my dad was David and your brother is David,
That's
so
right.
we were all meant to be. Hey, it's E.B. Moss, and this is episode 4 of It's Quite a Living. Now, you know that this is about my conversations with friends in high places, but I'm going to push the envelope and include kind of family. Well, Marc Blatte is my stepbrother, and he also happens to be a Grammy nominee, the winner of an ASCAP award, of a Lifetime Achievement Award, of a bunch of Clio awards, and he's an author too. So he definitely qualifies as a friend in high places, even if he is sort of blood. Marc Blatte, as I mentioned earlier, is a composer and he's an author. And Mark, you've been around the music business a long time. And when I first saw you on our little Squadcast platform here, I get to see you. You were in bed. I said, but Mark, it's like, 3 in the afternoon that we're recording this. And you said,
I said we keep musicians hours. We don't go to bed until usually 2 to 4. It really depends. Yeah, and we do it no matter where we are. No matter what time zone we're in. China, Africa, we don't get up until late.
you got to keep up the perception of like being this cool musician, which you are.
I'm not as cool as my wife, but yes,
So
we try to keep it up. My wife is a producer. Jeanne Neary Look is my wife, and she's a music producer. So it works, it works.
yeah, and she's sleeping now, so we couldn't get her
Hmm.
on mic, but
Hmm.
we're gonna talk about her. I just wanna talk about your life. When I met you, like we said, you had hair
I had hair. I had a mustache. I look
and a
like a
mustache,
porn. I look like a porn star. Come on, what are you talking about? But I had the look first.
and that was in the '80s, man.
Hmm.
So what were you doing then? Of course, you were grown up when I met you, so
Right,
I didn't know you as you were learning music and
right.
that whole thing. So how did music come into your life?
Well, my dad played the clarinet, and when I was 5 years old, he gave me one of those little recorders,
Uh-huh.
and I loved it. And I played clarinet in a band growing up. And then when I was around 10, my grandfather took me to see The Music Man on Broadway, starring Eddie Albert. And I was like, wow, I want to write music. I think I can do it. When I was around 11, I started writing songs and taught myself how to play the guitar. And then The House of the Rising Sun came on the radio. I think I was 13. And I have a neighbor who I'm still in touch with. His name's Steve Marcus. He was making records at 16. He played saxophone in a band. And so he came over. We had a little piano, and he showed me how to play House of the Rising Sun. And I learned it in every key. By the time the summer was over, 3, 4 months, I could play the piano because I'd learned the House of the Rising Sun in every single key. So the piano was my friend. I was familiar with it. And then in my senior year in high school, I played in a band called Floozy. Okay. At that time, we would make tapes. There were reel to reel tape recorders, and we would make tapes. And I would take the train from Mount Kisco into Manhattan with tons of dimes in my pocket. And they had something called the Yellow Pages.
Oh, yes.
Right, in Grand Central Station, so they had these very nice phone booths, and I looked up music publishers. So I'd get there like around 12 from Mount Kisco, New York. I was 18. No, I was 17. I didn't know anybody in the business. I didn't know your dad. That was before Dave, who was in radio. And I would start calling these publishers and I'd say, "Hi, I'm Marc Blatte. I have these songs. Would you like to listen to them?" And let's say I call 10, right? One person would say, "Okay, I'm in Grand Central Station. I have my tapes and I'm going to see a publisher," right? This happened many, many times. At that time, I think they were thinking, "Oh, he's an 18-year-old kid." They were thinking Carole King, Neil Sedaka, whatever. Who knows? I'd come in and this happened, I would say at least 6 times that I can remember. I'm just sitting there in this publisher's office. He says, "Let me hear the songs, kid," because that's how they talked back then. "Let me hear the songs, kid. Show me what you got." So then I would give him my tape, right? And he'd put it on. And 1 minute into the song, he'd go, "This sucks." I said, "Oh, well, there's 4 songs here, Go to the next song." Minute into, he goes, "Oh my God, horrible." Fourth, third one, fourth one, same thing, right? So I'd be like, "Oh my God, here I am in New York. I better think of something." "Oh, well, sir, can you play me something that you like?"
Wow,
Oh,
smart.
I was thinking like, and they would play me stuff that they'd like. And then I'd say to the guy, "I'm going to come back in 3 months. And hopefully, I'll have something for you. So 3 months would come by. I'd go in again. He listened to it. He goes the whole minute, goes, "Oh, that sucks. But there are 3 or 4 seconds there that are really good." So I'd be like, "Oh, well, that's great. I went from 0 to 4 seconds." Right. Now, I did this until I was 28. By the time I
Oh,
was 28,
God.
I go in a publishing company and they go, "Sounds like a hit." Everything I play go, "Sounds like a hit. You want a deal?" I'd been so persistent. I was like, because every time I saw them, they go, "Oh, you're up from 4 seconds now. It's 10 seconds." I'd be like, "Okay, so now I'm 24 and I'm up to like 19 seconds." I'm like,
Oh,
"This
good.
is great." So I moved to New York when I was 23. I got a job as a superintendent of let's call it a slum, okay, down the Lower East Side. I would work from 8 to 12 every day as a super. I'd mop the floors, take the garbage out. And then from 12 to 5, I had a little studio. I went in and I wrote songs. And then from 5 to 6, I made cold calls. And then at night, I played in a disco band. When I had free time and enough money, I would go into the studio and record. I was writing with this guy I met at a party named Larry Gottlieb. And Larry Gottlieb was just the sweetest guy. And he since is a Grammy winner. He wrote "Believe Me, Baby, I Lied" for Trisha Yearwood. And we were nominated for Grammys. We wrote a song that was a #1 record called "When She Was My Girl." Yeah, so I picked a good one. When we were 25, actually, Clive Davis, who is a record mogul, he discovered Bruce Springsteen, Janis Joplin, da da da. He heard our music and he offered us a publishing deal. And Larry was independently wealthy somehow from his bar mitzvah money. And he was like, "Nah, I don't want to sign a deal." I'm like, "Oh man, maybe we should sign a deal." He goes, "Nah, let him give him 4 songs," right? So we give him 4 songs. And, I had to keep working, right? He didn't have to work. 3 years later, a friend of ours named Alan Tepper was working for MCA Music. And he said, "I'd like to sign you guys." So we signed to MCA Music. Within 2 years, we had this big hit record, #1, "When She Was My Girl." It was all over the place. It was great. I was walking around the city, which is, it's weird because at the same time, Stevie Nicks was recording a song of ours. And I was so excited about Stevie Nicks doing our song. I just completely forgot about the other thing. Anyway, she stopped recording our song. This came out. It was a big hit. And now I have to tell you, one of the great experiences of my life, and I'm passing this along. Okay. So I'm 30 years old now. I have a #1 record. I'm not really grasping the significance of it, right? Because I didn't get like all of a sudden, somebody didn't say, "Here's $50,000. It was like I was making 300 a week as a composer. That was in advance. And I was still making 300 a week when it was on the radio. It's #1, right? I get a call from the president of MCA Music. This guy's name is Jay Morgenstern. Okay, he's a big deal in the business, and I used to date his daughter Franny when I was a teenager. So I know this guy. I know this guy. I called him Uncle Jay, right? So he calls me up. So this is something for everybody because this is a real seminal moment for me. So I go up to the MCA. It's on 6th Avenue, and in Manhattan, where all these like near CBS, just all these big buildings, very corporate stuff. I go into the lobby, and I'm sitting there really nervous. And his secretary says, Jay, we'll see you now. Right. And I go walk through the corridors and I come onto this big, big, big office. So I walk in, the carpeting is absolutely white, like pristine white. And he's sitting at the other end on this big mahogany desk. The sun is streaming through the windows. And he says, Boy, chick, it's good to see you. I'm so proud of you. I'm like, thank you, Jay. That is so kind of you. I couldn't have done it without you. So he says to me, would you like something to drink? Okay, I'm going to have the girl come in. She's going to bring you a seltzer. I'm like,
Right.
really? Okay. So this, this young lady comes in with a tray and a glass, and she hands me the glass, and I go to grab the Perrier bottle, and Jay says, no, 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 she'll pour it for you. I'm like, really? I'm like, what? Where am I? I'm on the sofa. I'm definitely lower than he is, and I'm drink Perrier out of this glass with ice. And he says to me, Mark, we're so proud of you, He goes, let me ask you a question, Mark. 6 months ago, 6 months ago, what were you doing? I was writing songs, Jay. Right, but nobody ever heard of you, right? You never had a hit, right? You were a nobody. You were an idiot. I'm like, where is this going? I go, yeah, Jay, I was an idiot. He goes, and now you got a number one record, and what? You're a genius. You're a genius. I said, thank you, Jay. And then he goes, but guess what? In 6 months, when that record's not a hit anymore, guess what? I said, what, Jay? He goes, you're going to be an idiot.
Oh my God.
So what I got out of that was that I was just going to skip being a genius part because I was always bound to be an idiot, right? So no matter what happened to me, no matter how successful I got, I was just going to be an idiot. And that really works. It really worked for me because the more successful you become, the more opportunities you have, and people go, they meet me and they know I did certain stuff, and they go, oh, he's such a nice boy. I go, oh, I'm an idiot. What do you want? And so the way I approached your job is how I approached everything. Like, what do you want? Okay, I'll send you something. You like it? If you don't like it, I'll do it again. You're the customer. And I would say that is a key part of my success. The point of this is that when you're successful, the moment you're successful, it doesn't matter because you're not going to continually remain successful. So there's no point in getting really like, oh, I'm a big guy, I'm the Mac Daddy, because it's not going to last. So a lot of people, they get successful and they become arrogant or something like that, right? And that doesn't help their career. The way to move forward always is with great humility. And so that what that man taught me that day was when he said, in 6 months you're going to be an idiot. And that's basically how I approached everything after that. I never let a Grammy nomination, or I got this award for best country music. I got a Lifetime Achievement Award for Writing Hands Across America. I got a lot of Clios and stuff like that for best music and advertising. And all the time I was just like, thank you.
And keep going and go back and do what you do.
Exactly. Because that's exactly what you have to do. And most people don't do that. But what I found is, like, I produced Kenny Rogers. I produced a lot of really big stars. Yo-Yo Ma. They're all the same. They're all like that. Like, you think you're with Kenny Rogers, he's the richest man in Hollywood, he's going to be an asshole. Instead, he's like, what can I do for you? Is that good? Is that right? Let's hear it again. So they're quite deferential. I mentor kids, and what I tell the kids is that these guys understand their place in the social matrix. I think there are two things that make people successful from what I have seen. One is lack of ego. They're like, it's about the work, whatever you think, I'll do it again. No problem.
Yep.
And then the other thing is understanding your place in the social matrix, meaning like, I'm just the writer here, right? That's whoever I'm working for, that's my client. I'm not the guy who calls the shots. They call the shots.
Well, yes, and that's on your commercially created things, but what you create out of your heart and your soul, you're your boss.
Right. And I've been looking at my life retrospectively. By 1986, I had two top 10 records, an ASCAP award for Best Country Song, a Grammy nomination for Best R&B Song, and several advertising awards for Best Music in Advertising. I was 35,
Amazing.
and it was absolutely amazing. And I also wrote Hands Across America, which was through Kenny Rogers and Lionel Richie, with, I guess you would call it commercial success, those kinds of things.
Mhm.
I felt that I had honestly never written anything that I was very happy with personally, that I felt resonated with my soul, you know. And I've been working with this guy named Joe Sarazano. He's from, the hollers in West Virginia. Some guy heard him play in a bar from Columbia Records when he was 18 and offered him a record deal on Columbia Records. And as happens in the record business, only 3% of the artists on any label generate income for that label. So that means that if you're an artist, you get a record deal, you have a 97% chance of failing.
It's about the same odds as having a podcast with more than 1,000 downloads per episode, by the way.
Right, right. But you never know. You never know. That guy just got paid $100 million, Joe Rogan or something like that.
And this episode, by the way, is gonna put me on the map, man.
That's it exactly. Because exactly. You got to think like that. Joe Sarazano comes to New York to live, right? But he's a hillbilly. He's really like, like Jed Clampett. And he does a Miller beer commercial. Miller's made the American way. And he makes thousands of dollars. And he becomes the number one guy in demand in New York City. And he's got all this stuff on the air. And he's making a ton of money. He has his own personal banker from Chase Manhattan. In 1986, Kenny Rogers called because he wanted a song for Hands Across America. And at the time, I was writing This Is Not Your Father's Oldsmobile.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. And I was not into the concept of stars singing songs for charity. I really objected to that. I thought of it as self-aggrandizement. I told Kenny that. I wasn't crazy about We Are the World. I mean, it's a nice thing, but it really it's kind of a self-promotion by people who don't really need the money. Why don't they just give the money away? I mean, that's how I felt about it.
So what changed your mind?
Okay, so I was on the phone with Kenny Rogers and Ken Cragen. Ken Cragen put together We Are the World. And I said, well, why don't you get those guys who wrote We Are the World and sang all those stars? They're great writers. And he said, we tried them. What did you try them? He goes, yeah, we gave them copy points. And they just go about writing their songs because they're artists. They just they missed all our copy points, right? Mark, will you just do us a favor? I was like, really? Okay.
And you'd written for Kenny, of course.
Yeah, I've written for Kenny. I wrote for Pride is Back, for Chrysler, which was a Chrysler theme song, which was a single for Kenny Rogers, right? Mm-hmm. And after that, I wrote several songs for him. And we were in touch, right? So I wrote Hands Across America with Larry Gottlieb and John Carney. And he's also Reeve Carney, who's the star of Hadestown. It's his dad.
Oh, man.
My wife, Jean, grew up with John. And I was writing Hands Across America, and I was stuck for lyrics. And the guy's a genius. He came up with this line, This sky, so serene, has felt the kiss of countless dreams.
Mm.
I was like, John. Okay. So we wrote it, we sent it to Kenny, and Kenny called me back. I played it for Lionel Richie. Lionel said, the only thing wrong with this song is nothing's wrong with the song. I said, okay. So my experience of getting my songs recorded in general is that they don't come out the way that I hear them. They may become hits, but that's not how I really heard them. So I really want this song to be as I heard it. I said, well, I can let it go, and and you can get whoever you want to sing it. But nobody sang it as well as Joe Sarasano. So recorded Joe and Sandy Farina, another great singer. So that became the theme song, and those were the artists who did it. But after that, I felt like I hadn't written a single song that resonated with me the way House of the Rising Sun, Mr. Tambourine Man, Take It Easy, any of the early Dylan songs that Joni Mitchell did. So I know Joe had the same sensibility as I did, and I said, you want to write songs that are meaningful to us.
Mhm.
We're just going to go and do this out of love, you know. And we spent 4 hours every Monday, and we did this for 4 years. The end of 2 years, we came up with a song called Healing Hand, which you know,
Yes, I do.
right?
I love that song.
Thank you. And once we came up with that song, I felt the burden lift. And we did this project, and we took it into the studio and recorded it. A lot of very successful studio musicians were on it. And so I felt after that, I felt artistically redeemed. And I continue to work on this project. I consider it my legacy. And I just finished up 5 songs with Joe, and we're going to get them mastered, and I will put them out. And whatever happens, happens. But it's something that I was able to do because I had the good fortune of having enough success to just go ahead and afford to do this.
Mm.
I think that the people who are the most successful are the ones who are able to just go full steam ahead and show up on the job, do 100%.
Mhm.
They tend to exceed expectations. Like, I've been in a studio with, say, Kenny Rogers or Michael Bolton or somebody like that. They just kill it. They show up on time. They do it 110%. I think that's what's required. So, you know, as you know, you'll come across a lot of people with talent, but very few people have the ability to sustain or have the comportment to to turn it into a career for
Yeah.
whatever reason.
Mark, you did an interview with NPR a few years back, and you talked a lot about your book, Humpty Dumpty Was Pushed. Really, really cool novel. And in that, you actually had said that you'd stopped writing music after 9/11. What happened that got you back into music again?
Yeah, after 9/11, I wrote one song called Hole in the Sky,
Mhm.
and that was put out on 3 separate albums.
That was covered by 3 different people? Is that what
Well,
you
what happened is the song came out on an album that was made by advertising creatives, and then the police and firemen had their own album of guys who were firemen and policemen who wrote songs. But they liked this song and they put it out on
Mm.
their album. So I
Mhm.
felt really honored by that Hole in the Sky. But Gene and I did a lot of volunteer work. We lived near the police headquarters on
Mhm.
21st Street, and I just lost my enthusiasm for writing, and I just felt like there were other things that I could be doing. I think the suddenness with which 9/11 happened made a lot of people in New York reevaluate how they were living their lives, and time sort of superseded money. It was like, do I want to keep working and make money, or do I want to take this time and have an experience? And
Mm.
so we stopped working and we traveled around the world for 4 years. Uh,
That's how you ended up in Nicaragua?
yeah, yeah, we were wound up in Nicaragua, and the way that Humpty came about is I was writing these crazy, crazy travel logs. I mean, you probably got some, And anyway, we were in New York at a time during those 4 years, and my cousin Ken Kalfas is an author. He is a Penn Faulkner Award winner. He's a great author, and his wife is a Pulitzer Prize winner.
Wow, nice marriage.
Inga Saffron, right? So we're sitting around. It's Pesach, and the guy says, right, Passover, and he says to me, Mark, he says, I love your travel log. You got to write a book. I'm like, Ken Cal, because he reviews for the Times as well. I was like, really? Yeah. And Inga said, yeah, Mark, you just got to write a book. So I spent 5 years and I wrote A Humpty Dumpty Was Pushed, which was based on experience we had in the 90s. We were making so much money. We really didn't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And some guy.
Good problem to have, by the way.
It was really great, right? But we wanted to do something, we wanted to do something constructive and fun, and something that might be profitable. And I had in 1981 and 82 been making hip hop records for Corey Robbins at Profile Records, Run DMC, like that kind of thing. And so there was a guy Jeanne and I met who wanted to start a hip hop label. And he brought this artist of his up to our office. And I was blown away. And he said, well, can you finance a hip hop label? And we financed a hip hop label. We was down with Wu-Tang. They'd come up to our office and hang out. Everybody, Noriega, all these gangsta guys would come up and hang out with us. And we spent 3 years and we lost $400,000.
No.
And so.
But you had fun doing it.
Right. So when Ken said, you should write a book, I said, well, what do you write about? He goes, well, you write about what you know. And so I said, well, I know the hip hop. And I met some really crazy people. So I wrote this book called Humpty Dumpty Was Pushed, based on the hip hop experiences. And it's been optioned for film and TV 5 different times, but I never wrote the screenplay. But right now, a friend of mine produces big TV shows, and he read the book and he said, I think you should write a screenplay for a film. And I just finished yesterday. Wow. So I'm going to send it out to him and hopefully he'll like it. So, Humpty continues. Humpty Dumpty Was Pushed.
That's awesome.
And what I'm hoping is, it comes out and I'll sell lots of books.
Yeah. Well, I think that anyone who can go from talking about Pesach to hip hop.
Soul brother.
Paragraph.
Right. Well, I got to tell you something. This cracked me up, but Jeanne and I were watching public television. They were doing a pitch, and they had the greatest soul songs of the 70s. And you can buy a 6 CD set.
Like a tell kind of.
Yeah. And my song, When She Was My Girl, was on it, and I was like, along with other stuff that I just love, like If You Don't Know Me By Now, like a lot of stuff like that. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, Jeanne, I might officially be a soul man. So we contributed and we got a box set, and it's one of my most prized possessions.
That's excellent. Oh man,
I'm telling you, no, life is good. I was somewhere and I heard somebody say to somebody else, hey, how's it going? And the guy went, I'm living the dream. And I was like, that's it, man. I'm living the dream.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You've really helped a lot of people make dreams happen too. I mean, I don't mean to be corny about it, but when you lived in Nicaragua, you did a lot of fundraising to dig wells.
Right.
In impoverished areas. You've really sort of fostered a lot of musicians. And, you joke about losing money over the years for trying to do the hip hop label, but you've mentored a lot of musicians and brought people along the way. So you've helped people live their dream too, I think.
Yeah, I think it's mutual. I think it's really mutual. I feel incredibly blessed. I mean, Mark Cohn came up to the office one day.
I love Mark Cohn.
Right. So he came over one day because we were close. And he said, hey, I got this record deal on Atlantic Records. You want to hear the song? Mm-hmm. He sat down at the piano. He played me Walking to Memphis. And I knew Doug Morris, who was the head of Atlantic Records, because he had signed me as an artist. And I called him up. I said, Doug, I just heard the most amazing thing in the world. He goes, what is it? I go, Walking to Memphis by Mark Cohn. So I had that experience. I knew Lisa Loeb. She played
Uh-huh.
Stay. Michael Bolton came up to the office to play us Dock of the Bay because we were close with him.
Yeah.
So, it's just not, it's just nice. It's nice to be part of a community and, feel like you want the best for everybody.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean, some of your other influential things are giving Marie Osmond the most played song of her career, right?
right. That's very nice. That's nice. I see her on Weight Watcher commercials, and I say to
Good
Gene,
for her.
right, when you look like that, you don't have to really sing. She did a great job, but let's.
And now you're a step granddad.
That's right. Our daughter Hardy has a son named Xavier, and Hardy and Chris and Xavier all got COVID, and they've
No.
recovered. They've subsequently recovered, but they've been tested and they have antibodies.
Oh
And
my. Well, we
yeah.
should explain that one because this is one of my favorite stories. As I mentioned, you're my stepbrother and you have a second wife and she has two daughters. And I got to know your stepdaughter, Hardy, pretty well. She did a little work with me with Moss Peel Green back in the day, and she's really into sustainability also.
Hmm.
Um, but Hardy and I have a step thing. So she's actually my step niece. And I guess that makes her son Xavier my s- great step nephew.
Right. Exactly.
Something.
Well, yeah. She loves you. She loves you.
Aw, back at you and her. So any other like moments when, you're just being a regular old idiot and but you think back on the moments of genius that you had, what jumps out at you?
Yeah. There's one story that is unbelievable. We talked about. I wrote prize back that Chrysler used
Yes.
and I wrote it with a guy named Alan Mond and Larry Gottlieb. Anyway, so Alan Mond was a big executive at an agency, and he calls me up, he and his partner, and they talk like madmen. Mark, we were asked to be to entertainment, Pride Entertainment for this ball. Would you write a song for the ball? And I wrote the song, and Mark Cohn came in and sang it. And they said, well, we'd like you to play the song for the person who is the honoree, right? So I was like, great. They said, you have a boombox. I go, yeah, I have a boombox. He goes, bring it up to the Plaza Athene at 10 o'clock Monday morning, and we'll introduce you to the person who's going to
And you
be.
had no idea at
I
this
had no idea who she was, right? No, who it was. So, okay. So I go to the Plaza Athene. It's a boutique hotel for like the super duper wealthy. It's on 67th Street. And I go up to the room, and this woman opens the door, and she says, "Hi, my name's Sherry Lansing." Okay, I'm like, "Oh, Sherry Lansing, aren't you the president of Paramount Pictures? Didn't you produce Forrest Gump?" I didn't say that. I just was like, "What the hell is happening here?" I got to smack myself in the head, right? So it's I go in the room, and my two guys are there. The guys who got me involved,
Uh-huh.
and so they because they're ad guys. They go, Sherry, Mark here wrote this song. Perhaps Hands Across America. Mark wrote that song and other songs which you. I'm like, oh my God, this poor woman. You and I have know people who passed away from cancer. We know how horrible it is, and there's probably a connection there between someone she loved dying of cancer and her being the American Cancer Society Woman of the Year. That's what this was for.
Okay.
So, okay, so we're sitting at the table, and they say, "Can you play it for her, Mark?" And I go, "Okay," and I play it for her, and she starts crying
Oh,
hysterically. And when the song is over, she's in tears, and one of the guys puts his arm under my leg under the table, and I swear to God, he goes, "Boy, chick, you did good." So she's kind of gains her composure, and then they say this. I just couldn't believe it. You want to hear it again, Sherry? I'm like, my hands are up in the air. No, no, no. they insist. She's like a wet noodle, and I leave. I say, thank you, Sherry, thank you, great, great, great. All right, so then I get back to my office and I get this call from them. They go, Mark, she really liked the song. Do you think you can get your friend Kenny Rogers to do a video of the song and we'll play it at the Waldorf Astoria at this event, the American Cancer Society? Jeanne calls up Kenny. She's very persuasive. So we do a video. I go to Nashville, go down and produce him. We do the video. Now she invites us to the Waldorf Astoria for this night, right? And there's 1,000 people in the grand ballroom, and the chairman of the board of Cartier gets on stage. He goes, tonight we have a special song, and we'd like to thank the person who wrote it. Marc Blatte, would you stand up? And because nobody does that, right? In award ceremonies, usually it's the record company picks it up, the advertising. So I'm sitting there, and I'm looking around for this guy, Marc Blatte, honestly. And Jeanne says to me, stand up, stand up. I was like, oh. And then Sherry does a speech, and then there's all these stars, Bette Midler, Danny DeVito, one after another, you name them, all of them. And then the dinner's being served, and I said, well, I think I should go congratulate Sherry, for the night. I go over to her and I say, Sherry, congratulations. And she says, oh, Mark, thank you so much. Have you met my escort? I'm like, this is weird, right? No, I don't believe I have. And she says, Henry Kissinger, this is Marc Blatte. And he says to me, you must be very proud, young man. And this is where it gets interesting. And you might want this podcast to go a little longer because it's really interesting. And all I can think of when he says, congratulations, young man, is a line from a Joseph Heller book called Good as Gold. Henry Kissinger is asked, how come you have a Jewish accent? And he says, it's not a Jewish accent, it's a German accent. Right? That's what Henry Kissinger says. Okay. Now, I found that a little weird. And so I was very hesitant, and also grew up during the Vietnam War, and he was one of the key architects. So it was a very uncomfortable feeling for me. Mm-hmm. Okay. Fast forward 8 years. Okay. I'm in the Hamptons at a restaurant with my wife and my sister-in-law, Lynn Neary, who is a broadcaster on NPR and is in charge of books. And we're sitting at a table in this restaurant, and this guy walks in. He's about probably 75, close to 80. And my heart starts beating. I don't know who he is. I have no idea. Why am I feeling like this, right? I was just overwhelmed with love. So I said to Lynn, who is that guy? And she says, it's Joseph Heller.
Oh.
This is unbelievable, right? So I say to Lynn, I got to talk to him. And Lynn says to me, I don't think you want to talk to him. He's a misanthrope. He's known for being a misanthrope. But I'm like, I got to talk to him, right? So there's a moment where he's alone. I go up to him and I say, Joseph Heller, Marc Blatte. And he opens up his arms and he smiles and he goes, Marc Blatte, what can I do you for? And we kibitz for 15 minutes about Henry Kissinger. And then when he was leaving, he came over to our table and he put his arm around me and he says to my father-in-law, Marc Blatte, I love that kid. That's the story.
It's a good one. I love it. Yeah, I love all your stories.
Well, that's it. That was the most unbelievable thing. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It was great. It was great.
Well, it's been a good road, Mark.
Okay, yes, it has.
May it continue for many, many miles to go.
Yeah, you too. You look fabulous. We love your podcasts.
Marc Blatte, thank you for joining me. It's quite a living.
It's quite a life.
Well, I really want to thank you for listening, for sharing, for subscribing to, hopefully even rating this podcast and telling your friends, because after all, this is just about talking with friends. So thank you for being in my expanding circle of friends. And the truth is, whether you're living quite the living, we're all really lucky to be living quite the life.